Howdy friends, Brian Flechsig and Mad River Outfitters in the Midwest Fly Fishing Schools, and welcome back to another one of our Q&A series. You know, make sure that you subscribe to our videos. Hit that like button even if you don't like it. You'll be surprised how good it makes you feel. And stay tuned because we've always got tons of great fly fishing content coming your way. And if you subscribe, you'll get notifications each time we release a video. So we appreciate you being here, and as always, we appreciate the questions. Be sure to send them over to admin@madriveroutfitters.com. Send them over via email. Of course, if it's an emergency, you can pick up the phone and give us a call. Yes, we're a little bit old-fashioned. So let's jump right in. And we have a question from Samuel Lamerson, PhD. I think we've communicated with Sam a bit, but he did specifically send this over as a question for the Q&A series because he's looking for a free hat and fly box, which we're gonna, of course, get right out to him. Sam says, I was watching another fly caster with much more expensive equipment than mine. He told me that my main problem was not the rod or the reel, but the line. He said spending money online will help my casting more than anything else. When he let me try his gear with what he said was a $300 line, in parentheses, there was a tremendous difference. My question, given that I have the line that came with my Redington set, would spending money on a line be a good place to spend money? Well, Sam, a couple things here. I believe it's very, very true, and the answer is yes. That's going to be the best place for you to spend money, no question. And you've maybe heard me say this before. Your number one piece of equipment is your fly. And it's actually probably tied with the leader, okay? And bear with me here. If your fly is not the right thing that the fish want to eat, well, you're out of luck. But if you can't deliver it properly to the fish and it won't allow a natural or lifelike presentation via the proper leader, then what good is the right fly? So it's kind of a tie between these two. And of course, you all know that I'm a big leader guy, and therefore I think your leader is actually your most important piece of gear. And then number 3 is your fly line. And then probably number 4 is your polarized sunglasses. It's a ways down the list before the rod and the reel actually come into play and become that important. I really don't care what your rod is. There's a lot of good fly rods out there on the market. You're almost hard pressed to find a bad one. But if your fly line sucks, you're gonna suck too, okay? So your friend is right that and it doesn't make any sense. The beginner kits, even the ones that we sell here at Mad River Outfitters, the Temple Fork Outfitters Black Label, it's a great outfit. The Redington Path, great outfit. The Echo stuff, excellent. Cortland has some good ones. Orvis has some good ones, but they all come with crap fly line. It doesn't make any sense to me. I wish they would put good fly lines on there. Because the line is really of utmost importance. I'd rather see you with a $20 fly rod and a $50, $60, $80 fly line than the other way around. There's no question. The answer to your question is yes, that's going to be a great place for you to spend money. One note is that your buddy told you that he had a $300 fly line. You know, there is no such thing as a $300 fly line. I don't know whether he was trying to impress you or make you think he was cool or whatever, but no such thing as a $300 fly line. It doesn't exist. I've been in this industry for 30 years. It's not out there. Just a simple upgrade is think about the Scientific Angler's Frequency fly lines. These come in at $49.95. They have a standard trout taper, which is good, of course, for average trout fishing on your lighter, more delicate kind of rods. And then they make a fly line called the Boost, again, $49.95. And for those of you that remember, this is the old Scientific Angler's GPX taper, one of the best-selling lines of all time. It's a little more aggressive, a little heavier, and it's gonna help you fly cast a whole bunch. The Scientific Angler's Boost is one of our best-selling lines. If you wanted to spend a little bit more money, you could go with the Scientific Angler's Mastery series. It's going to be a little more technical, a little better coating. They sell for about $74.95, or something like a Rio Gold is one of the best-selling fly lines of all time, and it comes in right about that same price, $74.79. And if money is not an issue, the Scientific Angler's Amplitude and their MPX Taper. This is available in the Amplitude Smooth or the Amplitude Textured, and the MPX is a fantastic casting line, similar to the Boost, and it's a little heavy and aggressive, and it will really help you load the rod and help your casting immensely. So your friend is right, but he's full of BS about a $300 fly line, because the top of the line, the Amplitude Textured at $129.95, even the textured, or excuse me, the Amplitude Smooth comes in at $99.95. So you don't have to break the bank. You don't have to spend $300 on a fly line. In fact, you can't spend $300 on a fly line, at least not in any fly shop that I've ever been on. So there you go, Sam. Yes, upgrading that fly line is a good place for you to start, and it will help your casting a whole bunch. So thanks as always, Sam. We appreciate it. Thanks for the emails, and we will get you out a free hat and a fly box here immediately. Next up is Todd Oldroyd. Todd Oldroyd forgot to tell us where he's from. So Todd, if you're out there listening, send us your address and we'll send you out the hat and the fly box. But my name is Todd Oldroyd. I live in Idaho, and I've been spin fishing for the past 2 years, but I want to get into fly fishing. I have the gear and I've watched a ton of your videos. They've been most helpful, but I still have a question. How often should you move? For example, if I've been drifting one spot for 20 minutes, should I move upstream or downstream? Keep fishing or tie on a new fly? Well, Todd, I guess I've got a couple answers here. First of all, if you've been drifting one spot for 20 minutes and you're just expecting different results for some reason, that you've got to change in the first place. Yes, you should move upstream or downstream, unless there's just a bunch of fish laying there and you know for a fact that they're there. Man, you got to start changing flies. You got to add some split shot. You got to change where your indicator is. You've got to, yes, move upstream or downstream a little bit. But if you're fishing a hole and you're not catching fish, yes, one of the things you can change is to move up or downstream. I'm not sure that I would fish one spot for 20 minutes. I think this is an opportunity to teach a great lesson that was taught to me many, many years ago. One of the first times that I hosted a trip, and we're talking about way back in 1990, and my good friend Charlie Weaver, he told me, he said, if you're not catching fish, change something. Yes, I will say it again, because these words should ring in your head at all times when you're on the water. If you're not catching fish, change something. Of course, the first thing we think about is changing flies. And that may not always be the best case scenario. Maybe it's not the fly. A lot of times I'm more interested in the amount of split shot that you have on, say if you're fishing nymphs or streamers. You might change the diameter of your tippet. You might change where you're standing. You might change the position of your indicator. You might change how far upstream or downstream you might be casting. But if you're not catching fish, especially for 20 minutes, you got to be changing something. Another great example, I just got done reading a book about Theodore Gordon, and I also just finished Kelly Gallup's Modern Streamers for Trophy Trout 2. And both of those guys, over 100 years apart, they talk about changing colors, or running the colors, I think they call it. And if you've ever fished with Kelly Gallup, Kelly will go from a yellow to a black to a purple to an olive, And I'm telling you, he'll make 3 or 4 casts. And if he does not get a fish on those 3 or 4 casts, he will change the color. Theodore Gordon did the exact same thing. He would make 1 or 2 drifts with a color, and then if that didn't do it, he would change the color of the fly. Now you could also change the size of the fly for that matter. You can change your retrieve, change your underwear for that matter. I don't care what you do, but if you're not catching fish, change something. So yes, yes, and yes. You should move upstream or downstream, but for sure, you should keep fishing. Don't ever give up. Just change something and you'll figure out a way. If it looks like food and acts like food, they'll probably eat it. So there you go, Todd. I hope that answers your question. We appreciate you being here. Send us your address and we'll get you out a hat and a fly box. So next up on the docket today, we have Mike Toon. And Mike also does not tell me where he's from, but he says he lives 120 miles south of Columbus. So we're darn near neighbors. And Mike, if you're out there, send us your address via email and we'll get you out that hat in the fly box. Mike Toon says, just love your YouTube channel. This channel has helped me so much to develop a love and passion for the sport. Well, that's a great honor, Mike. Thank you. I have a question. I watched the episodes on leaders and tippets. When I change size in my flies, do I have to change the whole leader? In other words, where it attaches to the fly line, or can I change the size of tippet and tie it to the end of any size leader that I may be using? Thank you and God bless. Same to you, Mike. P.S. I live about 120 miles south of Columbus. One day I will come up there and shop at your store and meet the staff. I'm up there frequently anyways. I drive a semi around that area often. If you have a place where I can park my semi, I would love to drop by. Well, Mike, we have ample parking, plenty of room for parking a semi, so we'll look to see you soon. You know, Mike, I've answered this question several times before, but it's wildly important, so it doesn't hurt to review. And if I'm using a package leader, I don't always use package leaders, but when I do, they're made by Maxima. If I'm using a package leader and tippet, for example, I would only use, if I was a trout fisher, and I'm just making an example here, I would only use a 4X leader. We'll just call it a 9-foot 4X leader. This is where it's going to attach to your fly line. And then you're going to have a tippet, which is included in the package. Remember that a leader equals the tapered butt section, which you see there in purple, plus the tippet, which is the last diameter and the business end. Okay? If I was a trout fisher, which I am on occasion, I would only buy 4X leaders. Because let's say you're fishing a size 12 dry fly. You do the math, we remember you divide by 3 or 4, and that's going to require 3X or 4X tippet. Okay? So I'm fishing a size 12 dry fly, and all of a sudden, a hatch starts coming off of small little bugs. They look like mayflies, they're kind of olive in color. Whether or not you know the scientific name or the common name, it doesn't matter. You're going to open your fly box, find a bug that's about that same size. It has upright wings like a mayfly, and it's slightly olive in color. Well, we know that, say it's a size 18 now, we know that a 4X leader is going to be too fat for a size 18 fly. So what you can do is, you do not have to remove this leader completely and tie on a new one, say of 6X tippet. You could make one simple snip with your nippers and then tie on, using a simple surgeon's knot, tie on a piece of 6X tippet, maybe 1.5 feet, and you just went from a 4X leader to a 6X leader by making one snip and tying one knot. Now, make sure that you understand that this little piece of 4X there It used to be tippet, and now it's part of your taper, okay? The answer to your question, Mike, is that you must keep your taper intact, okay? You cannot just take a 4X leader. I mean, you can, but it's not gonna work well at all. You can't just tie on a piece of 6X tippet onto the end of that. That's double tippeting. You've heard me say that before, it's double tippeting. Can't do that, okay? You've got to cut that back so now it's a short piece of taper, and now you would add on a piece of 6X tippet. You could do the same with 5X, but what you would never do is you're never gonna, for example, add 2X tippet or 3X tippet to that 4X. You cannot ask skinny to turn over fat. Skinny kid can't push a fat kid up a flight of steps, but a fat kid can pull a skinny kid up a flight of steps. Hopefully that makes sense. No offense to skinny or fat kids. But what you might do, so you can't ever ask thin to cast fat. So you can't just tie on a piece. You've got to think about it, and you've got to keep your taper intact, okay? If you were in this situation, all of a sudden you wanted to switch to a size 6 woolly bugger, you need, say, 1X tippet. You could cut this back to where it's approximately 1X. You can then attach a short piece of 1X tippet, and let's say that you've got a 7.5 foot 1X leader now. It's fine to be shorter on a heavier fly, a sinking fly, fine to go a little bit shorter, but this must be somewhere around 1X or 0X back here. It has to be fatter. You can't attach the 1X to the 2X, that's just not gonna work, okay? There are some cases, now let's say that in this situation, all of a sudden a hatch started coming off again of those little tiny bugs. I probably wouldn't take the time and the energy to make this 1X leader back into a 6X leader. You'd have to add a piece of 3X, maybe a piece of 4X, and then your 6X tippet. That's going to be a little labor intensive. You're tying too many knots. That's when I probably would go ahead and pull a leader out of my kit bag, loop it on or tie it on, however you do it, to the end of the fly line. That's going to be the best case scenario, the most effective and the most time effective, call it, when you're out there on the water, okay? So I hope that makes sense. Yes, there are ways that you can just add some tippet, okay? And that's why I like to start with a 4X leader, because I can go either way by basically making one snip and tying one knot. So I hope that answers your question, Mike. We appreciate you being here. Send us your address and such, and we'll get you out that hat in a fly box. As always, we appreciate y'all being here. Send your questions over to admin@madriveroutfitters.com. If we get to them here on the channel, we will send you a free Mad River Outfitters hat and fly box. And as always, be sure to subscribe. It really helps us. Give us a thumbs up. It'll make you feel good and us feel good. And stay tuned, because we've got a ton of fly fishing content coming your way.